Beginner's thumb position guide. I have a lot of students going into this sort of off-season time, at least here in North Texas, where all the major competitions are finishing up. So students are kind of in a position where they're able to work on their technical skills. So especially younger students who are learning about thumb position for the first time, this video is mostly for you, or teachers, orchestra directors, if you have a good bass player that's really wanting to learn more, then these are some good mechanics to get you started. The biggest problems that I typically see with thumb position are kids don't get up into the right position. A lot of the time they'll reach with their hand and the mechanics are not quite right. Their fingers end up flat. So I'm going to try to give you guys some tips about that today. The general thing that we want to make sure is that our left shoulder gets closer to the bass. If my shoulder is back, my wrist is kind of cut off by this upper bow. So that's number one, is make sure that your shoulder comes forward. So if you're standing, this is what that looks like from the side, right? So when I go into thumb position, right, I'm in first position, you can see there's a gap over here by my hand. My shoulder is not touching the neck yet. When I go into thumb position, my hips will move backward as my knees bend, and then the base will kind of take over where my body is right here, and then my shoulder will be allowed to get closer. So I want to be clear that we're not keeping our hips still and moving our body forward to get to thumb position, because this is not good for your back. If you let your hips get out of the way, and then you can see now my face kind of comes into the frame, I'm making space around my stomach so that the bass can fall into me and my body is lower. So if you sit while you play, all you have to do here is lean your torso forward, right? Because your legs, you're on a seat. So that's the only real change here. All right, so first position, and then going up into thumb position, I want to make sure my body comes forward. All right, that's tip number one. Tip number two is to keep the fingers curved. So obviously we all teach that in the lower positions, but when we go into thumb position, students are really concerned with playing the right notes. So they're not really thinking about all these mechanical things. Okay, so I'm gonna move the camera closer so that you can get a better view of this. All right, so when I make a shift into thumb position, say I'm playing the G major scale and I've got C, D, and then I'm coming up, E, F sharp, and then I'm getting into thumb position up here. The shoulder thing is true that I mentioned before, but another thing is that we want to shift the weight of our arm toward the finger that's playing. Right, so if you imagine my right arm is the string and my left hand is playing, if I'm pressing with the first finger, you can see the weight is going to the first finger. When I play my second, I do not want to reach like this to play. This is what a lot of students do, is they'll hold their hand in one spot, but they won't rotate the weight toward that finger. When you go to the second finger, you must rotate the weight. You can see now it looks like the pressure is on my second finger. First goes to second, not like this, but like this. And then when you go to third, there's a slight rotation of the wrist so that the weight goes into the ring finger. All right, and tip number three for students getting into thumb position is with the bow. All right, this is sort of related to tip number one, in that students, when we go into the higher register, will often forget to move their bow lower, right? So let me demonstrate what this sounds like. If I don't move my bow lower, the sound quality starts to sound really choked and really scratchy. Okay, so I'm going to play a G major scale from the second octave. I'm going to keep my bow at the bottom of the fingerboard where I might be playing it in first position, so without moving it. You can hear the sound quality is really bad because my bow is not moving down. Okay, so now I'm going to move my bow down so you can hear the difference. You can hear the notes are much clearer because the string is vibrating the proper way. Okay, so I say this is related to tip number one because if we don't get our left shoulder forward, probably our right shoulder has a tough time reaching as well. So when we go to thumb position, our hands move together. When the left hand goes to thumb position, the right hand should drop. Okay, so an exercise that I have my students do when you're starting out in thumb position is you'll play open G and then A and B in the first position. And then we'll shift into thumb position. So I have them move, if you're standing, move your hips back, your shoulder comes forward, you're not resting on the bow, your wrist is still straight, and then we play G, A, B in thumb position. And you see my thumb, then my first, and then when I go to second, I'm not reaching, right? You see my finger would go flat, I roll to the next one, right? So then we go back and forth. So this is good for pitch, this is good for the technique of moving your body to the right position and getting your fingers to stay curved. Okay, so you can do this obviously on any string. We play like here, then shift, right? Check your body mechanics, wrist straight, shoulders up. And then we rotate the weight to the finger that's playing. You could do this on the D string as well. D, E, F sharp, shift up, wrist is straight. And same idea. These are 3 simple tips. I hope they're simple tips for you to get started with thumb position. And you know, if you're a student listening to this, I would say try to be patient, especially if you feel very proficient and you're doing well with your music in class and you made all region, or if you're kind of feeling good about your playing in the lower positions and you're starting to feel discouraged by the thumb position stuff, try to stick with it. I mean, this is very, very different body mechanics that we're using here. Obviously, we don't get our thumb behind the neck anymore, so that's really kind of jarring to get used to. But try to go through this slowly, make sure that your hand is working the correct way, that you remember to move your bow up, and I promise it will be quicker than you think that you'll be playing solos in the thumb position and able to do some of this more challenging stuff.